What's going on, guys? Welcome to Among the Fence, where I do full album reviews, and today we're going to be talking about Rivers of Nihil, Where Owls Know My Name. And this album was suggested to me by one of my good friends, and if you guys have any favorite albums that you want me to review, or even just singles that you want me to review, go ahead and leave a comment below letting me know what they are, and I'll make it happen. So Rivers of Nihil is a band that comes from Pennsylvania, and there's kind of, I don't know, when it comes to subgenres of metal, you kind of have just these weird gray lines where you don't really know what to call it. And some people call it technical death metal, math metal, just regular old death metal, or even melodic death metal. But regardless of what genre you want to place it under, it's safe to say that it's not really a genre that I listen to. I don't listen to death metal, math metal, technical death metal, melodic death. I don't listen to any of those things. I basically stick to metalcore, heavy metal, old school metal. But I was still pretty excited to listen to this album, and I gotta say, this review was kind of tough to write because there's just so much to unpack when it comes to this band and this album. There's a lot to it. Where Owls Know My Name is River of Nihil's third studio album, and it was very anticipated. I think it was on like the top 100 charts. It made it to like 60 something or the other. And after listening to it, I can definitely see why. This album is very atmospheric. It's very big. It's not as aggressive as I was expecting it to be in some parts. It definitely fills the room, but at the same time, it isn't overwhelming. And death metal bands are known for doing blast beats, which is just very fast drumming, very fast bass, very fast snare. It's something that I don't really get into. It just doesn't do it for me. And this album does have that on it, but it isn't, again, it's not overwhelming. It isn't overbearing. It isn't repetitive, which is basically what it sounds like to me. It's just very repetitive noise, which just gets very, very old really quick. But this album does have it, and it turned out to be more complementary to the music instead of overbearing and being in the forefront of the guitars and the bass and the vocals, which was actually pretty nice. It fits the parts very well where it does happen. And the intro song on the album, Cancer/Moonspeak, is the perfect song for this album, for an intro. It sets the tone, sets the mood. It kind of just gets you ready to go on the journey that this album is. And the second song on this album, Silent Life, which is probably my favorite song, really, really caught me off guard. It came in sounding like a typical death metal band, and it exceeded my expectations tremendously. The vocals in it aren't really that standoutish, but the lyrics are very good. They're very poetic. They tell a story, which this album, I'm assuming it's a concept album. It tells the story very, very well. The way how the lyrics are written, it's not lazy at all. And like I said, the vocals aren't really that great, but it fits. Like, I couldn't imagine any other vocals singing any of these parts. And the part that won me over on this song the most, that really just caught me off guard, is the bridge just takes a dive and it gets really quiet and very atmospheric, and then a saxophone starts playing, and I just had to do a double take. I was completely surprised. I actually listened to the song probably about 3 times the first time I heard it, and there's actually saxophone parts on 3 other songs in the album, I believe. And the song that comes directly after it, A Home, is a very, very close runner-up at being my favorite, even though it has elements of it that I don't really like all that much. The verses sounded kind of djenty, which is a sound that's just overdone. It doesn't sound bad. It fits the song well, but it's just something I've heard so many times. But the song has amazing progression. The vocals are absolutely beautiful. It has very ethereal vocals during, I believe it's the bridge, and then directly after it, which this is something that probably only I would notice, or maybe an extremely big fan of Pink Floyd would notice, is that the guitar solo that comes exactly after the bridge sounds almost exactly like a Pink Floyd song called Any Color You Like, which is off of their Dark Side of the Moon album. And normally I'm not really a fan of songs or bands that kind of mimic other bands or other sounds, but it didn't really sound like they mimicked them. It just sounded like they thought that this would be a really cool sound. They did it. They probably don't even realize that it sounded close to it because it just fit the song so well. It fit it beautifully. It doesn't sound like a band that's copying this other band or trying to mimic them in a way. And the song just has a badass riff in the outro, a sick guitar solo. The lyrics in it, again, are very poetic. There's a lot of effort and time that went into them, and it just tells a great story. It's very captivating and engulfing. It's like reading a book, basically. And the song Testria 3, Wither, is the song that separates the first half of the album from the second half of the album. And normally I hate these songs. I despise them. Almost every single album that has one, I skip it, can't stand it, and I don't get it. I don't understand why it's put in there. But this song was so well made. It is so well written. I think there's only a couple lyrics in the song, like towards the end, but it's just so creepy. It almost sounds like a song that you would hear at the end of a horror movie while the credits are playing. I will also say that after the interlude dividing song of the first half to the second half of the album, most albums usually die out for me after that. I get very bored with them. I'm kind of over it. It's like a break I didn't really need. And then when I come back around to it, I'm like, we're just kind of starting this whole thing of every song sounding the same to me now. But it doesn't do that at all. The song directly after it, I think, is called The Hollow. And it does a great job at just bringing it right back in and grabbing your attention all over again and getting you ready for the rest of the ride. And the last song, Capricorn / Aportorpia, I believe, if I'm saying that right, kind of brings the ambience and the same kind of vocals and kind of a lyrical throwback to the first song, which is kind of cool how it just brings it back around full circle. And it starts out that way, and then it goes into this just very climactic ending. It's the perfect song. It's not my favorite song, but it's a great ending. It ends the album very well in telling this story, which, again, the album is very poetic. It's just very captivating. The lyrics just grab hold of you, and like I said before, it's like reading a book. You just want to see where the story goes. And if there's anything I disliked about this album, it's probably all crammed into one song, and that's the subtle change. It has this keyboard kind of interlude, which it doesn't sound bad, and the riffs are really good, and it doesn't really have anything to do with the lyrics I dislike, but it just sounds so much like Dream Theater, and I just can't stand that. And then for the interlude of this song, they play this guitar part that I swear they took from Ghost's song He Is, which, again, I'm a fan of Ghost, but it's the exact same thing. I feel like there's not a single note that's different from the intro to He Is to the interlude of this song. It's almost identical. And at this point, it sounds like a band that's mimicking another band sound. And I didn't enjoy that really at all. Between the Dream Theater strange things going on and the Ghost interlude, it's definitely my least favorite song on the whole album. And like how I mentioned before, how after the interlude song that most metal bands place where there's no lyrics, sometimes the song is only about like a minute or two long, the album kind of falls apart. This album, it does get a little bit slower, it does feel a little bit repetitive, but it's still good. But I feel like it just isn't, it just doesn't hold up to what the first half of this album is. It's still listenable. You could still play the entire album all the way through, and it's absolutely enjoyable. But it just isn't as good as the first half. And if I was going to rate this album, which is very difficult to do because, again, I'm not really that big into the genre. I enjoyed this album so much. I'm going to listen to it a lot still. A lot of these songs I saved on my Spotify playlist. So I'm going to give Rivers of Nihil, Where Owls Know My Name, an 8.8 a solid B+. It is a fantastic album. The saxophone parts on this thing just blew me away. Favorite part. I am a sucker for saxophones. If it didn't have it in this album, it would still be great, but holy hell, I loved it. And I even looked it up. The saxophone player that they used is a huge fan of metal, and he was more than happy to do it for him. And I was also curious to try and figure out what these lyrics are about, because like I said, it tells a story. They're very poetic. It paints an amazing picture for you. And I saw, I think it was on Reddit, where one of the band members went on there and talked about the meaning of the album. And Al is actually the name of the last man that's alive on Earth, and Earth chose him to be immortal and live forever so that he can witness the death of the Earth and everything. And somehow, I don't know how they did it, they managed to not only use the lyrics to paint this picture and create this world and this image in your mind about all the things this guy's going through, but the music in this album just creates this world, and you can really envision it, and you could feel it. You can feel this man's pain and the things he's going through, and all these things that he could possibly be seeing in this end time and kind of post-apocalyptic kind of world. Again, it's a great album. If you haven't heard it and you're a fan of death metal, or honestly any type of metal at all, I highly suggest you check out this album. The lyrics are great. The vocals can be kind of rough and kind of hard to get used to, but honestly, it doesn't take away from any of it whatsoever. It's still a very great album. And I hope you guys enjoyed this review. If you did, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more like it, don't forget to subscribe and click the bell icon so you get notified whenever I do upload videos. And again, if you have an album you want me to review, or even just a single song in general, leave a comment below and I'll make it happen for you. I hope you guys have a good rest of your day, and I'll see you guys next time.
I was